Alright, hello and welcome to the video. My name is Wade Smith, and this video is entitled Isshinryu Karate, Where Does Bad Bunkai Come From? So how does bad technique get started if our instructors are supposedly teaching us the correct technique, is what this is about. Um, I can only surmise that it may come from one instructor taking their previous instructor's instructions out of context and using one technique in a context that it doesn't rightfully apply to, and that sort of thing. For example, is the crescent step in Isshinryu. I don't believe that the crescent step in Isshinryu karate is intended to be the basic footwork because nobody in professional fighting uses a crescent step as the basic footwork, especially even when changing stance from southpaw to orthodox or back. Nobody uses a crescent step; they just take a straight step. All right. There's a basic rule in geometry that says the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So the crescent step can't be intended to be the basic footwork in Isshinryu karate, even though at some point in my own training I was taught the crescent step incorrectly as the basic footwork in karate. This is what I remember the real grandmaster teaching about the crescent step is that it's used in certain situations where your opponent's foot is in the way and you want to go for a sweep. You crescent step around their leg, you push their body forward over your knee as you lower your weight to let your knee act as a fulcrum to trip them and make them fall backwards, hopefully onto their head. So the crescent step is not just changing stance from orthodox to southpaw. The crescent step is stepping around the other person's leg, hooking their leg, and then throwing them over your knee. Okay, that's the correct crescent step. Um, what was another one that I wanted to address? The snap punch. There, I agree with Grandmaster Calandra, and I agree with my original instructors. There's no such thing as a snap punch, and I have 6 years instruction total directly under fourth degree plus black belts for a total of 4,000 dojo hours, not counting hours outside the dojo. And never once did any of my instructors refer to the Isshinryu punch as a snap punch. All right, it's not a snap punch. The punch goes out and it just comes back when you pull it back to standing guard. Of course, when you're practicing your basics, you throw it from the hip. You may wonder why we throw it from the hip because most real fights start from a natural position. They don't start with people already got their hands up. You start with the bad guy surprising you, so your hands are down by your hips. And I've been in a couple fights as a kid and a couple fights as an adult, and every time the other person is going to surprise you and you don't even know you're under attack until you're under attack. All right. So uh that's why you start with your basics punching from the hip. Do we know what a standing guard is? Of course. All right, because we practice full contact sparring, hopefully. So the Isshinryu straight punch comes if it's thrown from standing guard, it comes out, you torque your body into it. It's slightly slanted, it's mostly vertical, but slightly slanted, and you're leading with the front two knuckles of your fist, not the bottom two. I've seen some people incorrectly teach that you lead with the bottom two. This bone is weaker than this bone. You want the force delivered on the radius bone, not the ulna. All right. And these knuckles are stronger than those knuckles, and they stick out farther, which leads to lower surface area, which is higher PSI when you punch somebody else in the face or the solar plexus. So you lead with the front two knuckles, slightly slanted vertical fist. This is how Naoya Inoue punches with both his jab and his cross, by the way. All right. So you go from your standing guard in a good Seisan stance, 45-degree angled body, hands cheek to chin to cheek high. All right. You're going to torque from your ball of your foot through your hip, through your shoulders, out. And you're going to go through the target. All right. Only when you're fully extended, then you pull back. All right. You punch through the target, not at the target. So the problem I have with a snap punch is the snap punch seems to be creating this whipping motion that he's claiming that the guy who's teaching it incorrectly is claiming is increasing the power, and it does not because your elbow ends up out here instead of in proper alignment here. What makes this work is a hinging motion, not a sideward whipping motion. All right. So this, whatever he is, fifth or sixth, seventh degree black belt online, even though he's 6 ranks above me, I think he's actually teaching it wrong. Whereas Grandmaster Calandra and Grandmaster Advincula have been teaching it right for their entire lives. All right. The punch comes along your side so that we don't leave an opening to counterattack on our ribs any longer than absolutely necessary. And if the target is the enemy solar plexus, of course, it's like so. If the target is enemy chin or nose, it's like so, here or here. All right. But it comes back to your standing guard. Like I said, when we practice reps, this is actually a grappling maneuver when we bring it back to our hips in reps. There's a reason you practice grappling maneuvers and striking maneuvers in a single technique. And it's twofold. Like I said, you start every fight starts with you standing here jawing at one another, and then somebody throws a punch. Fights don't start with somebody going like this, put up your dukes, within the other guy's like, oh, you know karate, I'm going to kick your ass to prove it doesn't work. All right. So it's not a snap punch. It's actually more of a thrusting punch. It's a hinging and leveraging punch. It comes out. It goes all the way through the target, 2 to 4 inches beyond the surface of the target, and then it comes back to whatever the home position is. If you're just doing basic reps, it comes back to the hip, to the belt knot level. If you're actually in a fight, it comes back to standing guard position. And again, a real standing guard is a good seisson or guard stance, 45-degree angle torqued body with both hands chin to cheek high. So just you can see your opponent, but they can't easily deliver a punch to the face or your ribs or your liver. Okay. As far as your torso goes, you want to protect your solar plexus at all costs. So I can inside parry the solar plexus to protect the solar plexus. All right. And you want to protect your liver at all costs, because those are the 2 vital points in your torso that are going to get easily damaged the most if they get a direct hit. Thankfully, your heart is pretty deep beyond your rib cage, so they can't stop your heart very easily, although I know a few strikes that can. They're more of a combined submission grappling maneuver. I just swallowed a bug, I think. But, well, I can show it to you. If you get side arm control on somebody, there's a strike right here in the bunkai under the armpit, which will stop the person's left lung and heart. It might even give them a full-blown heart attack. You just straight punch them straight into the armpit and the last 2 ribs up here as hard as you can once you get them rolled over into side arm control. And that will probably take that person out of the fight for the next several minutes. So it hurts about as bad as getting kicked in the nuts. All right. So I'm not picking on the man, but Jackie Chan is not, nor ever has he been, a professional fighter. He does have a black belt in Hapkido, which means he knows some real martial arts. But what's done on film, he is in the branch of comedic martial arts, not even meant to be serious martial arts. His films are meant to be comedy. They always have been, and he would even agree with that. So he's not necessarily demonstrating to you the real best technique for a one-on-one fight, nor the real best strategy for a one-on-2 fight. All right. Because very often his films have a 1-on-5 or 1-on-10 fight that would be completely impossible in the real world, and they have him winning the fight. And so just keep that in mind. And I'm not picking on the man. It's just that that's not real martial arts. Real martial arts is generally going to be how to win a 1-on-1 or a 1-on-2 handicap if you're really badass. And then after that, you should, if there's more than 2 attackers and you already know there's more than 2 attackers at the beginning of the fight, you should probably try outrunning them. I would agree with that. If you already know there's 3 or 4 of them, even if you think you're pretty badass as a black belt, you should probably try outrunning them before you turn and fight, just to see if you can dust them. Because if you're a good runner, you're more likely to be able to dust 1 or 2 of them and outrun them all than you are to be able to turn and fight all 3 of them at once. But I've never been a good runner, so I guess I don't have much choice other than to learn how to fight 3 people. All right. Now, matter of fact, I was never a good runner. When I was in high school, I think I could run like a 5.5-second 40-yard sprint, and that's not even really a sprint for most people. Because I remember when I played soccer as a freshman, my 40-yard dash was about 5.5 seconds, and the fastest person on the team was AJ Crone, and he ran it in 4.3. So I was more than a second slower than the fastest person on the team, and I was probably the slowest person who qualified for the team. I'm pretty sure I know I was. And if there had been one more decent runner, then I wouldn't even have made it on the freshman team. But a 4.3 is pretty good. It's not quite Deion Sanders good in his prime, but it's pretty good. But I'm telling you, that's just how I did. I didn't get the running gene. So I wouldn't be able to outrun 3 thugs, most likely, trying to beat me up. I would have to turn and fight and just hope I beat them. Even back then. Bad Bunkai was the original topic. I suppose, I don't know where this comes from, but I have seen it done by a heavyweight black belt on the Fight Science television show that used to be on Discovery Channel, where he proved that he could palm heal a human skull inside a ballistics gel casing and crush the human skull at the nose. All right. Well, people argue that that does not work, and it probably does not work for 99% of martial artists. All right. But I was taught that it's supposed to work if you actually do have the correct form and technique and the correct upper body strength that a black belt is supposed to have. I was taught that that is supposed to send bone fragments into the other person's brain. It's supposed to be a lethal to near lethal strike by the time you're in the purple to black belt range. Now, if that's bad bunkai, I don't know where it came from, because it was originally claimed that the Japanese troops in World War II could in fact hit a Western soldier and crush their skull with a palm heel strike or a punch to the face, because they had trained already to that level. I don't know if that claim is true, but I was told that. All right. And see, that becomes hearsay. If I just told you that without pointing out that somebody else told me that, it would be hearsay. I'd be deceiving you. But I'm telling you, what my point is, we should be careful with what the expectation of our bunkai is versus what's really going to happen in a fight. Because in a real fight, you might not hit them perfectly to do maximum damage by a palm heel to the nose. All right. Or in a real fight, if you palm heel to the jaw, you might get lucky and catch their tongue and cause the opponent to bite their tongue off. And that would be awesome, because then you're going to win. Because they're going to be in so much pain that they won't even be able to do anything other than squirm and probably cry. All right. So pick your target according to what realistic expectations are. And another thing, the kamae, where you dislocate the person's jaw here and rip their eye out with the other finger, it also depends on if they're wearing glasses, whether that's as practical or not. If they're wearing glasses, it's harder to get your fingers in there to grab at the eyeball. All right. And some people have a stronger jaw than other people. So be aware that your thumb might not dislocate everybody's jaw when you go to try that on somebody. But 2 fingers in the eye will certainly rip an eyeball out. But if they've got glasses, it's going to be harder to get your fingers in there at full speed. All right, so good bunkai versus bad bunkai. Nothing wrong with the kamae, all right? It's just that you got to understand the situation where it's practical or impractical. Stomach nerve number 9 does work. I've had it demonstrated on myself as a submission, and I've tapped out a 3rd degree Gracie black belt who was a heavyweight once with it, and verbally submitted him, by the way, not tapped really, but verbally submitted him. But if you strike stomach nerve number 9 with the karate chop, it can in fact knock somebody unconscious. So even though people don't believe that because they don't do it in MMA, strikes to the neck are banned in MMA because it's dangerous and it can kill or cripple or permanently injure the person in several ways. So you're never going to see that used in MMA because it's banned in MMA. What wonder of wonders? You're never going to see that. It's been banned in MMA ever since season 8. All right. And most of the people fighting in the first 8 seasons didn't know that, because the best karate, ironically, the best karate fighter in the first 8 seasons had no traditional bunkai training. He was self-trained in karate and won the Sabaki Challenge, which tells you how much the karate had been diluted in the Sabaki Challenge. which, by the way, Isshinryu fighters never compete in that, because the reason we don't compete in it is that we have an open house every couple of years and we win the open house. And if you don't believe me, you can search. The last time this was done was just a couple of years ago. I think in the Netherlands, they had a once every couple of years open house where it was an open invitational. Anybody could come, and the Isshinryu fighters eventually won. And yes, they were scoring one punch and one kick knockouts and one punch or one kick body blow knockouts. And the people online don't believe it. They think it's either fake or that the other person can't defend themselves. And that's not what it is. When you throw a real karate punch, it knocks the other person senseless in one hit if you hit them with it, unless they block it or evade it. It's not like point sparring, and it's also not like boxing in gloves. If you've ever watched bare knuckle boxing, it's more like bare knuckle boxing. Although most of the competitors in bare knuckle boxing are not professional fighters and aren't even black belt level karate fighters. They're more like green belt level on a karate scale, even the ones that are fighting in bare knuckle fighting championship. I think the only one that has any real boxing or karate experience is Austin Trout, and he's the champion of his weight class. But the rest of them are pretty much street brawlers or low-level karate fighters that show up and do bare-knuckle fighting, and most of them knock one another out within 15 to 20 seconds. Most of the fights only last 20 seconds. Very seldom do they go to the full set of scheduled rounds. So my point to the people is, well, the Isshinryu people are not defending themselves, and it's like, it's not like that. The Isshinryu straight punch is almost impossible to block. If you don't anticipate it coming by seeing the person's sternum and solar plexus moving, you can't block it, because it's a straight punch and it comes out so fast that by the time your eye comprehends what it's seeing, you've been hit. That's how black belt versus black belt is in real karate. If you don't look at their torso center line and see that movement in time to start movement of your own to counter or to parry or to evade, you're going to get hit. It's that fast. As fast as you think it's coming, it's already hit you. All right, because we didn't just train this a little bit, all right? We were doing 200 reps of push-ups for warm-up and doing our reps in the mirror, all right, before we even got to bunkai or sparring, all right? So if you do 200 or 300 push-ups, because I was actually doing 300 push-ups a day back then. I was doing 200 in the dojo and 100 on my own time, all right? When you do that many push-ups, your punching speed and power is going to be lightning fast. It's going to be a pow, 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 all right? You've done hit the other person 2 or 3 times, and they don't even understand what happened to them. And it only takes one good hit on a vital target when it's that hard of a punch, and the other person is going to buckle over or be knocked unconscious. If it's taking you 10 hits to the face to knock somebody out, you don't have good punching power. And that goes for people in MMA too, even though you're only wearing 4-ounce gloves. If you're wearing 4-ounce gloves and you can't knock somebody else out after you've done managed to hit them 5 or 10 or 20 times in the face, especially when you already got a grounded opponent, you must not be punching correctly. I've been in several real fights, and it usually only takes 1 or 2 good punches to end a fight, especially bare knuckle. All right. So bad bunkai. This is probably not reliable bunkai, even though it can be done. I've seen it done on high-speed camera on Fight Science on the Discovery Channel or Nat Geo or whatever it was at the time. It might have been the Science Channel, whichever one of those 3 it was. But it's probably not reliable bunkai, meaning that 99% of people are probably never going to be able to do that. So don't teach it as a fail-safe or foolproof ability. It's not, because only 1 in 100 is probably able to do that correctly. So teach bunkai that is reliable, such as a horizontal twist punch to the throat, or a tiger, web hand strike to the throat, where you're striking with this bone right here at the back of your web hand. All right, this is actually preferred because you want to be careful that you don't get your thumb jammed. But if you're leading with this part of your hand, you'll be all right. This is preferred because it's a narrower surface and will get under the chin easier than a twist punch. A twist punch has got some space in there that you're not able to get a full hit, whereas the web hand strike, you're able to get a full hit to the throat. So that's good bunkai, is twist punch or preferably web hand strike straight into the throat. Let me do it in the camera here. All right, like so. I'll orient my hand. See how I'm going to lead with this bone right here? Not this bone. This bone will get jammed if I put pressure too much on it. If I put pressure here, it's aligning 4 bones in the wrist behind it. All right. Bad bunkai, again, probably not so good bunkai, better bunkai. All right. Potentially even better bunkai is to high block under the chin and then go into a reverse neck breaker if you have to either submit them or finish them off if it's a 3-on-1 fight or something like that. You might have to finish your first attacker off. I hate to say it, but that's real life. If it's life or death, it's better you than them, right? Better you live than your evil attacker lives. So I have a hard time explaining that to Democrats. Democrats seem to think that you're just supposed to lay down and die and let criminals do whatever they want to you. I don't know why that's become that way, but that's how Democrats on the internet are. They're against gun self-defense with guns. They're against self-defense with martial arts. Why would you want to defend you, kill your attacker to protect yourself or your property? And it's like, dummy, are you going to value your own life or you're going to value the criminal's life? Well, the law-abiding citizen has rights and the criminal does not have rights. That's part of the 14th Amendment, by the way. When you commit a crime, you lose all 3 of your fundamental rights, by the way, according to the 4th Amendment, because it says no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property except as punishment for a crime. I'm going to finish this topic. What crime has a baby committed that the evil Supreme Court ruled that a baby wasn't a human being and didn't have any rights and could be terminated? What a crime that is. Supposedly we're the best country in the world, and yet we have murdered somewhere around 120 million unborn babies deliberately in the United States. That's more than communist China and communist Russia combined, by the way. So let's end with that. Chew on that, Democrats.